Hi, Ria here. So as you know, I was working on creating an instrument out of leaves to celebrate and experience textures of leaves. I started working with two different kinds of sounds, which were the sound of rustling leaves and the sound of water droplets falling on leaves. So I started focusing only on water droplets, and why I chose that is because I kind of like the complexity of a water instrument, and also there are not many water-based music instruments, so I kind of like that as well. I spoke to people in the music industry and they helped me understand that a music instrument is basically any product that helps you create sound. And a lot of ideas that I had were more like a sound installation and not an instrument. After a few iterations, I spoke to a structural expert. I was telling her, like, this is what I have in mind, and then she was recommending different materials for the ideas that I had. From there, when we were brainstorming and bouncing off ideas, came the concept. So in my previous iterations, I tried concave structures, arches, domes, but a flat surface is giving the most amount of sound. So when the user wants to create sound using the material on disk 3, he can simply rotate the disk and bring it under the source of the water droplets. Now in this, I was focusing purely on the music instrument and not the source of the water droplets. So I used a pump that's used for washing cars, which worked out perfectly. I got the result that I wanted. So for the structure, I tried the fibrous sticks that grow from the spathe of the coconut tree, the midribs of the coconut leaves, the main stem of the areca palm plant. Amongst all of these, the most promising was the coconut midrib. So I focused my structural experiment mainly using that. So for this, first I had to boil to soften them up and make them pliable. I created rings with coconut leaf midribs for the disc's frame. Unfortunately, many of them were either too brittle, so they snapped easily, or they wouldn't have enough tensile strength or friction, so they'd slip off while trying to lock them with each other. Eventually, I understood how to strategize the placement so that they stay intact and maintain their form. I boiled coconut leaves to soften them so I can wrap them easily around this created ring. This process also released its natural oils and created a water-resistant coating on them. I used these blades to wrap around the ring so that the sticks don't spring out. Once the ring was ready, the next challenge was to connect this ring to the cane axis. And it had to be strong enough to hold the weight of the material that's going to go on top of this ring, but at the same time it should also rotate in its place. During this, I tried to create my own rope using fibers from the coconut tree spathe, but the thread wasn't as strong as the ready-made coir rope, so eventually I used that. Simultaneously, I was also looking at how to strengthen this joinery. I made the structure of the ring such that the axis is sandwiched between two arches, making it a sturdier locking system. To seal the end of the coconut leaf being wrapped around the ring, I tried using a mixture of guar gum and tapioca starch, tried paper glue, tried rubber adhesive, and the rubber adhesive worked best. I started with the spongy mesh-like material found when a slit opened the stem of the flower of paradise leaf and allowed this to soak up a glycerin-based biopolymer. The second disc was leaf paper, in which I cooked and broke down the cellulose of leaves from 3 different plants, which were parijat, the flower of paradise, and a species of the ficus tree. After this dried completely, I sprayed water on it again and embossed a fan-like structure using a mold I created with brushes. For this, I used the fibrous leaves of the flower of paradise to create a disc using cooked fiber. by placing them in a concentric circle. For this structure to hold well, I coated it with guar gum and allowed it to soak up the glue. Next, I made a smaller circular paper sheet by turning the unused fiber into pulp. I colored the wax with some dried flowers of red ixora, peacock flowers, and some dry red chilies. Then turned it into a tea bag and let it soak in the paraffin wax kept on a double boiler for about 2 hours. When the color seeped in, I coated both sheets with this wax and used a direct flame to make the wax coating spread evenly. Once these were ready, I glued them with rubber adhesive. For the next type of disc, I wanted to celebrate a material that is interesting in its natural form and creates a different sound than the rest of the materials. For this one, I decided to make use of seed pods of the yellow gulmohar tree. In their natural form, they have a twisted structure which I straightened out and heat pressing them. I then stuck them together. I first tried with guar gum and tapioca starch, but that came off and hence had to use the rubber adhesive. For the fifth disc, I followed the process used for making paper from leaves. After breaking down the leaf, I removed the cellulose layer from one side, which not only exposed the leaf skeleton but also adheres to each other when I apply pressure. For the sixth disc, the spruce needles were heat pressed on a flat surface using an electric iron that was set at maximum temperature. When I heat pressed them, they not only flattened and created a beautiful texture, but also released its natural oils that automatically made it water resistant. The sheet that I created when I put them all together was the heaviest, and hence its disc needed a lot more strength to hold on to. For this, I used double frames and connected them with the coconut leaf blade. I tested wax coatings using paraffin wax and candelilla wax. Since these were the two waxes available to me, I was hoping the candelilla wax works since it is plant based, but when I tested the water drops falling on it, the sound produced was because of the wax coating and not the leaf material itself. After making them waterproof, I did the sound test to check if they really do sound differently and also to decide the order in which they will be placed. I decided to place the softest sound at the lowest point on the axis and the crispest sound at the top. The reason being that when water droplets fall on each of the discs from the same height, the softest sound will still be heard when it is paired with the crispest sound. After this and after all the frames for the disc were ready, I began cutting and altering the materials according to the size of each frame. If any sheet was flimsy or was drooping down, then I attached coconut fiber across the frame, which served as the base for the sheet. For fixing the structure, I took an unused terracotta pot that I found in the garden, which already had soil in it. But for the axis to fit tightly in this, I needed the length to be a bit more, so I fixed a large screw at the base. To balance the structure better, I put a screw horizontally through the cane. Once this was fixed in the soil, I filled the rest of the pot with pre-soaked coir separated from coconuts. The reason why I did that was so that the discs will not get soiled. Also because when soil gets damp, it adds to the sound. Finishing touches involved cutting off extra material like rope fiber, cleaning up the visible glue, and so on. Ideally, I would have loved to record this in a studio and create a music piece by collaborating with artists. For the main video, I wanted to use a music piece which plays a single instrument. And I chose a music piece where the artist was playing the sarod. So this was my journey of making the leaf instrument. Please have a look at the main video if you haven't already. Thank you for following me on my journey. Thank you for watching this video. Bye!